Hello, my name is Ricky Williams, and I'm an evolutionary astrologer. And today I'd like to talk to you about the movement of Saturn into the sign of Aquarius. Okay, I like to talk archetypes. And so let's look at the archetypes of Saturn and Aquarius to better understand what's about to go on. Okay, so Saturn is, in most cultures that have any kind of astrological lore, Saturn is depicted as an old person, usually an old man. Okay, and from this, we get that Saturn has a lot to do with maturity, okay, with maturity. And also, you know, if we typify this idea of the father figure, right, is, you know, when you go outside and you bump your knee, you know, or you're sick, you tend to run to the mother archetype, right? Could be your father or your mother, but the person who's the nurturer, right? You run to them. And if you, for some reason, they're not there and you go to the more Saturnian parent, chances are they'll say something akin to, just rub some dirt on it or just spit on it. You'll be okay, you know? Because from the Saturn perspective, the trials and tribulations that we go through are what help us mature, you know? And this idea of maturity, it doesn't only point to old people, right? Through the course of our life, there's certain things we have to do to mature to the next level. You know, a good example is graduation. You know, from my first graduation from 6th grade, you know, I didn't realize it at the time, but it's a big difference between 6th grade and 7th grade. 6th grade, I had, you know, Miss Eagle. I had one teacher. And 7th grade, I had 7 teachers and lockers and hormones and all these different things that I had to, obstacles that I had to achieve if I wanted to, you know, get to high school, get to the next level. And thank goodness, you know, it wasn't easy, but thank goodness I was able to adjust my habits from habits of a 6th grader to the habits of a 7th grader, okay? And Saturn, I like this word habits for Saturn, because when you think of maturity, that's really what it is. You know, it's about letting go of behaviors, habits that no longer serve you anymore, you know, that were great, but now you're ready to go to that next level. And so now your behavior must match that next level. Okay. And so another element of Saturn, right? Saturn has to do with obstacles. You know, I use the example of the little boy that bumped his knee, right? And the idea of if you want to accomplish anything great, right? This is really what Saturn is about, is achievement. If you want to accomplish anything great, you're going to have to persevere. You're going to have to find a way to navigate the obstacles, okay? So just in general, right? When Saturn comes on stage in our life, chances are we're going to meet obstacles, right? And the process of finding a way to overcome those obstacles, right, usually is going to require us to let go of old habits and acquire new habits, right? But the thing is, with these new habits tends to come a level of dignity and self-respect, okay? This is a positive Saturn, right? In Saturn times, my teacher says you're either exhausted or you're depressed, okay? So I'll start with depressed, you know? There's 2 ways you can get to depression, 2 main ways you can get to depression with Saturn, okay? Part of Saturn is commitment, the needing to commit to something, right? To keep the eye on the prize, to overcome obstacles, okay? So let's say I commit to something and I have my eye on the prize and I'm overcoming obstacles and I'm putting the work and I'm doing it and I'm doing it. But what I'm doing doesn't actually feed me, right? I listen to what my father, right? What my father or what my culture told me I should be doing. And I followed that path and I busted my ass doing it, right? But at the end of the day, no fulfillment, no fulfillment. I might have outward success, you know, I might make good money and have a good job, but it doesn't feel very fulfilling. And so I'm depressed because I put in so much work and there's nothing there, all right? Have I wasted all my time, okay? This feeling. The other way you can get to depression with Saturn is if you don't put in the effort, right? Is if you allow your laziness or your feelings to get in the way. You know, element of Saturn is it helps us do the things we don't feel like doing, okay? Again, element of maturity, right? Boys do what they want, men do what they have to do, okay? This is a Saturn cliche, okay? And so we become depressed because we missed the boat. We didn't show up, right? We weren't able to deliver, okay? Now let's talk about exhaustion, right? This is actually the positive Saturn, is that if we put in the work, right, and we accomplish something, okay, we're exhausted, but we have that sense of dignity, that self-respect, you know? This reminds me of when I was a football player. You know, my job was to get beat up. You know, they'd give me the ball and the other team would jump on me. And sometimes late in the game, if we needed to win, they would just turn around and give me the ball. And I remember one season, we'd won 6 games in a row. And during those 6 games, you know, it hurt both of my shoulders and I could barely walk. And I was exhausted, but also it felt really good because, you know, I literally put the team on my back and I was able to help us come through and have victory. So although I was beat up and exhausted, I felt like I was accomplishing something, okay? And this is the archetype of Saturn, right? And before I start talking about Aquarius, I want to talk about connections between Saturn and Aquarius, you know? Because Saturn moving into Aquarius is not happening, it's not occurring in a vacuum, right? If we go back to December of 2017, Saturn left Sagittarius and moved into Capricorn, okay? And there's something interesting about the progression of the signs, is that preceding signs typically correct the balance of the preceding sign, okay? And so they correct the excesses. And so if we go back to 2017, Saturn leaving Sagittarius, and Sagittarius is the sign of adventure, taking risk, putting yourself out there, saying yes to life, right? At the core of Sagittarius is about beliefs and faith and hope, right? But not the kind that we're given and we just take on. It's we take what we're given and we go out and we test it, right? We live and we see, is what my pastor, is what my mom, is what my dad told me actually true, right? And so Sag is about saying yes to life, okay? But if you say yes to life, you know, to everything, you get yourself into a little bit of trouble, okay? And this is where Capricorn comes along, all right? Capricorn follows Sag. And Capricorn, I wouldn't go as far as to say Capricorn is saying no to life, but, you know, Capricorn is really about slowing things down and being efficient, right? Where Sag can be wasteful because I just need to experience. I just need to have experiences, you know? But after you have the experiences, you know, hopefully you should have some idea of what you want to do, right? What you want to do, right? This is a Saturn in Capricorn, right? It's where the rubber meets the road, right? It's where we come to the reality, to the truth that all of our choices have consequences, okay? I'll give a brief example here. You know, 2016, the last presidential election in the United States, right? Donald J. Trump was elected, okay? Sag Moon, he's got a very big Sagittarian kind of energy, you know? Teflon Don, right? Gets away with everything. This is very Sag. Saturn moves into Capricorn, right? And pretty much the whole time Saturn's been in Capricorn, the president is you know, been going through obstacles, difficulties. First, it was the Russian investigation, and more recently, you know, he was almost impeached, right? Is that he had to face some consequences to his actions. Now, Capricorn, okay? Saturn entered Capricorn December of 2017. You know, we have this funny terminology in astrology where we say that planets rule certain signs. Okay, and we don't mean that the planet is the boss of the sign. What we mean is that there are certain resonances between the energy of a planet and the energy of a sign. Okay, so Saturn rules Capricorn. There's resonances between Saturn and Capricorn, right? They're both about accomplishing something great, a great work. They're both about eye on the prize. They're both about the ability to put our feelings aside and do what we have to do, okay? Do what we have to do. And they're both about consequences, right? It's about reality, right? Our choices, our actions have consequences, okay? And typically when we hear consequences, we only think about the negative things, okay? But I like the term karma, you know? The idea, and karma doesn't mean that if you do something bad is gonna happen. Karma just means that every action has a reaction, right? If you do something, that there's gonna be a response. And this is what Saturn and Capricorn is really about, is people having to face the consequences for better or for worse of their actions, okay? And again, I want to bring the theme I talked about earlier, the idea of the patriarchy, right? And everything doesn't happen in a vacuum. While Saturn is moving through Capricorn, also the planet Pluto was already in Capricorn for several years. And so just to talk a little bit about Pluto and Capricorn, to set the stage here, is as Pluto moves through a sign, right? Pluto enters a sign. Pluto's job is to make the unconscious conscious, okay? Pluto's job is to help bring to surface the buried shadow material so that we can look at it and we can hopefully heal it, right? We can do something, we can transform it, okay? I talked about Saturn, but this is also Capricorn, the patriarchy, okay? So Donald Trump going, the Russian investigation going through impeachment, another example. The father of the film industry, Harvey Weinstein, facing the consequences of his behavior, okay? Harvey's situation is really interesting because I think of Pluto and Capricorn as the abuses of people in power. When you're the father and you're on top, there's no oversight, there's no one to tell you what to do, right? And this has obviously created a shadow. And one of the things that pretty much everyone, at least in America, is becoming aware of is that we're getting tired of the patriarchy, right? And everything that it represents, right? And so for me, Pluto moving through Capricorn brings all this stuff up. Saturn helps make it real so we don't miss it, okay? We don't miss it, right? And a big part of Saturn moving through Capricorn brings up the question of what's right and what's not, right? What are the rules, okay? Because again, typically the rules have been made by the patriarch, okay? And, kind of setting the tone here for Saturn moving into Aquarius, right? Aquarius is the sign of the rebel, right? And it's like, and again, preceding signs correct the excesses or imbalances of the preceding sign, right? And so what's kind of come to the surface as Saturn and Pluto have been moving through Capricorn are, again, all of these abuses of power and the recognition that something in the structure of power needs to change, right? That's the people, but also I think it's the laws, right? And I think leads me right into Saturn moving into Aquarius, right? It's the authority figures, the laws, right, are going to start to take on more of an Aquarian kind of bent, right? Moving to a place where the laws are going to start to honor our own individual freedoms, our own independence, okay? Now let's jump into the Aquarian archetype, and I think to get to the heart of this, I think I'm going to start with one of my good friends, Carl Jung, okay? Carl Jung, his great work was really about the individuation process. This realization that when we're born, we're all conditioned to fit into our culture. But, as we grow, and usually about midlife, we start to realize, hey, there's someone in me that needs to express itself in the world. There's a unique part of me that has been pushed down and quelled by my need to fit in, right? And, the Dr. Carl Jung, an Aquarius rising with Saturn in the first in Aquarius, right? And this allows me to bring in the idea, people differ on when the age of Aquarius began, but most people agree that we're in the age of Aquarius. And there's tons of evidence, the technological age, the rise of individuality, okay? The internet, okay? And the myth, the theme of the Aquarian age is about being yourself, right? Underneath what you've been trained, conditioned to be. Who are you, right? And so Carl Jung's great work was the process of individuation, committing to being who you actually are, right? I think this is a good entree, a good example into Aquarius, When I talk about the Aquarian archetype, I like to start historically, right? And to point out that we didn't always live in communities like this, But as we came together, we realized that, hey, we're much safer if we can come together. If it's just me and a saber-toothed tiger, I'm in trouble. But if there's 20 of us in the saber-toothed tiger, that tiger better run, right? Because we can come up with plans and we can find a way to take care of this together, okay? And so, you know, as we came together into communities, you know, even later where we came up with this idea of democracy, right? These are beautiful ideas, but I think what gets lost here is, what do we sacrifice when we get together in a group? We sacrifice our individuality, okay? Something called groupthink, okay? And it's wonderful, right? When I'm driving down the street and I get to a red light, you know, I stop, and I know when it turns green, I can trust that the other cars that have a red light are going to stop, and I can go, right? This is because we have groupthink. We agree to these certain things. So this is a wonderful thing, you know, but where we have to start to question things is, what are the rules that we're following that actually really don't apply to us? What are the rules that we follow that actually squish and quell our individuality and our independence, okay? These are the questions that we need to start asking as Saturn moves into Aquarius, okay? Saturn, right? The challenge, the hard work of being yourself, okay? And I think a good exercise I use with the Saturn and Aquarius energy is to go into the future, right? Aquarius is this future energy. It's not who I am now. It's who I have the potential to become, okay? And Saturn the Elder, right? So this exercise is we take ourselves and our imagination to the future, and we ask ourselves, who do I want to be in the future, right? And as we connect with that image, right? Is that image who we truly are? Or how much of it is tinged with what we've been taught or trained to be, okay? These are the questions we need to start asking as Saturn moves into Aquarius, okay? So as Saturn moves into Aquarius, how is it going to affect us personally, right? So I think the obvious thing is, anyone who is an Aquarius, has their moon in Aquarius, or is an Aquarius rising, right? At some point, you know, in these 2.5 or so years that Saturn moves through Aquarius, Saturn is going to conjunct your sun, moon, or your ascendant, okay? And so it takes this theme of the hard work of individuation and places it right on top of something important in your life. And if it's obvious, right? It's common sense that sun, moon, or ascendant, these are prime symbols in someone's chart and in someone's life. It means that wherever your sun, moon, and ascendant are, you know, this is an area of life that you have to make a strong response to, or your life is not going to be as pleasing, as wonderful, as fulfilling as it could be. Okay, and so sun, moon, and ascendant in Aquarius, it means in this lifetime, you've reached a point in your evolutionary journey where it's time to be yourself, okay? Where it's time to be yourself, right? And as Saturn approaches your sun, moon, or ascendant over the next 2.5 years, realize, right, it's going to be time to change habits, to look at the ways that you've been faking the funk, is what I call it, right? Doing what you think you need to do to fit in, you know, quelling down that crazy little voice inside, you know? I think of Aquarius as this crazy little voice inside. And it's like when we hear it, it sounds crazy. It's like our natural reflexes. I can't say that. I can't do that. Or even, that's crazy, right? But if we can sit with it long enough and we allow that voice to sink in and hit our hearts, it transforms from I can't do that to I have to do this. I need to do this, right? And then we're in trouble. Because usually as we start to listen to that crazy voice and we start to give it expression, you know, typically, at least in the very beginning, the people around us, the people close to us, they're going to look at us sideways and they're going to wonder what's going on with us, okay? But if we stick with it, right, you know, we learn a very valuable lesson, right? As we start to move our lives in a more authentic direction, the information we get is, can the people that are around me come with me, right? If they can adapt and adjust to your changes you're making and appreciate you becoming more yourself, you know they can come with you, okay? If you start to mature in this individuated way and they can't deal with it and they try to hold you back, it's just information that they can't come with you, okay? So first and foremost, you have strong placements in Aquarius. as Saturn hits those placements, right, you're going to be called to do the great work of becoming who you truly are, right, of individuating, okay? So let's say you're like me and you don't have any planets in Aquarius, okay? You have to realize, right, if you have any planets in fixed signs, right, if you have any planets in Taurus, or Leo or Scorpio, right, as Saturn moves through Aquarius, they're going to make a square or an opposition to those planets. And you're going to still experience these obstacles and these challenges pushing you towards being more yourself. And, you know, squares and oppositions tend to feel a little bit tense, okay? And so, again, you know, look at your chart and see when these times are coming and make an intention, right? I think this is the most important thing that I can say, right? Is that astrologers, to me, we're not very good at predicting events. You know, I think what we're really good at is we're predicting the questions that people are going to have to answer. And with Saturn, it's like to take that next step in your life, you're going to have to become more of yourself, right? You're going to have to mature. And so if you look at your chart and you see, okay, when is this Saturn hitting my sun, hitting my moon, hitting my ascendant? And start beforehand. Start to think, right? You know, again, go to that your imagination, right? Imagine a more mature you that's more yourself, okay? And then be aware when the opportunities come to start to enact that, because they're coming, right? Okay. Aquarius is an air sign, okay? And so if you have any planets in Gemini or Libra, right, you're going to receive a trine from Saturn. You know, my sun is at 0 degrees Gemini, right? And already I'm starting to feel Saturn squaring my sun, you know, and how's it showing up in my life? I just mentioned it. I'm in a graduate program studying Carl Jung, studying individuation, 9th house Gemini, right? Study, okay? It's putting in the work, and it's hard, you know. reading Jung, it's not easy, but it's illuminating, and it's enlightening, and it's really lit me on fire to really pursue this process of individuation, okay? Now, we have sextiles, right? So if you've got planets in Sag or planets in Aries, okay, Saturn moving through Aquarius is gonna sextile those planets, right? And I think of sextiles as stimulating, okay, stimulating, right? So the idea of this hard work towards individuating can be very stimulating to you, right? But I think the way that aspects work, semi-sextiles, you know, will hit Capricorn and Pisces, and if we look at the inconjunct, that'll get us to Cancer and Virgo, right? And so everyone on some level is going to be affected by this aspect of Saturn moving through Aquarius. The nature of the aspect, what it tells us is this process, you know, going to be more or less supported and easier for you, or is it going to be more challenging? Because all Saturn aspects are challenging, right? Even if you have support in changing habits, it's still a challenge, okay? And you know, I think Saturn gets really a bad rap. You know, the ancients called it the greater malefic. But Saturn's not bad, you know? It's only bad if you're lazy, okay? Anyone that's ever achieved anything great in life, they needed a Saturn to do it. And I think as we enter this, you know, the Aquarian age, where the myth is really about doing the hard work to become who we truly are, to me, this is noble, a noble, great work. And the passage of Saturn through Aquarius is a great opportunity for all of us to engage in this process. And I wish you the best of luck, and I'll see you next time.